Ladies and gentlemen, will you give a round of applause for Daniel Northcott from Access North? Simon Fraser from Doctors Training. Liam Webster from Identify. Nick Bowen from Edu. Juliet Ralph from Robinson Ralph.
Yeah.
Am I missing somebody?
We're in uniform.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Welcome, thank you. Wow. Right, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and we're going to get the conversation flowing. I'm going to ask you all kind of probably to kick off and answer the same question. What we'll do is we'll go to Q&A at the end, but I think there's going to be a lot come out of this this session. So, Nick, I'm going to go to you first and foremost, if I may. And again, this question's for you all, but just take us back to the beginning. You know, what inspired you to start the business? What was the dream? What was driving you to start Edu at that time?
I think Edu started in 2020. I'd worked in multiple businesses at multiple levels. And I think, we all have the conversation of Generation Z where we are now, that people of a certain age want things before they can run, they want the highest salary, they want the biggest roles and responsibilities. But I can certainly say I started at the bottom. I started right down with no career, no qualifications, doing the jobs that no one else wanted to do through just great determination. But equally, once I'd got to that level of comfortableness with myself, an opportunity arose within COVID of being made redundant from an opportunity. At that point, I saw a niche in the market, putting through a few career paths that I'd gone down in terms of opening. And at that point, with a mortgage and 2 kids at the time, it was a really difficult decision to make. But similar to Eddie, as he said there, grab every opportunity that comes your way, and I went to run with it. My business utilises assets of schools in terms of generating income for education, and equally then giving the opportunity for communities to partake in activities. So from that perspective, we're now an 8-figure business. We have over 8 million visitors per year, a workforce of over 500. And any message for aspiring business owners from the start to this £1 million figure is go for it. Everyone's on their own journey. Every day is different. Okay, take the lessons, and as Eddie said, you learn more from your failings than you do from your successes. But certainly being here today, working with people like yourselves, networking, working with Gary, is certainly the first step on that ladder.
Fabulous, thank you. And that's a 5-year business turning over in excess of 10 million. That is pretty extreme, even for a lot of the businesses I come across. But actually, you've done nothing different to what most of us can do. You've seen an opportunity, and you've just had the courage to go for it. Fabulous. Simon, what about you? What was your dream? Because you had a slightly different kind of career path, didn't you, so to speak?
Yeah. So I'm a doctor. I looked after 6 children in Bradford for 27 years and did a lot of leadership roles and education in the trust. And quite frankly, I got sick of it in sense of not being able to make changes, the frustration, the politics, the backstabbing. So I left all my leadership roles, carried on being a paediatrician, and Doctors Training became my side hustle. A bit of extra money. It was my lockdown project. And I thought I want to support doctors. So my purpose is to support doctors and medical leaders rebuild the NHS from inside. And 6 years on, working with Gary and others, a lot of people in this room, I've got a fantastic team of 80 trainers, and we're up and down the country having proper leadership discussions with the people who are responsible for delivering your healthcare. That's my journey and I hung up my stethoscope in December, and because I think I can make more difference to patients for improving the NHS than the 200 kids I would look after in my clinic.
Thank you. And as you said earlier, you've just literally spent a month out of the business. Okay, you were delivering for 3 days, doing what you do in the UK, in New Zealand, but you managed to turn that into a 4-week holiday for your family. And, that's kind of a reflection of how far you've come, so well done. Thank you. Julie, what about you? You know, just tell us a little bit about your journey. How old's the business and where have you got to right now?
So we started in 2018. We started really from both circumstance and ambition. So picture this, I was on maternity leave, sat at home with a 6-month-old and a 5-year-old upstairs, and my husband comes home and announces he's just told his boss to F off. So I had a few choice words for him as well, but I could probably, to put it in context, he was having a horrible time at work. There were a series of not very nice events that happened, and he certainly, I know that there are other law firms here, certainly the last 2 that he worked at were not nice places to work. So he didn't fit the mould, and so he had a difficult time. So we had 2 options really. It was you go back, you find another job, and probably the same cycle starts again, or we do it ourselves. So we decided, and to be honest, for me, it was quite an easy decision. I'd watched clients follow him from firm to firm. For me, I was on mat leave from a job in pharmaceuticals that I didn't really want to go back to. I wanted a new challenge. So it just seemed like the perfect opportunity. And I think if either of us had had any doubts at that point, then it wouldn't have happened, because it was all our eggs in one basket, right? There was a mortgage to pay, there were kids to look after. So we just had to go for it and make sure it worked.
And I think, you know, there's a message in there in terms of we've all probably been in a situation at some point in the past where we've worked for an organisation we know is not right, or worked for a boss that we know isn't right. It's then having the courage to do something about it. Now, I know of Simon, I don't know him very well, but it doesn't surprise me that he told his boss to do that. It comes across very loud and clear, but we've all been in that situation where we want to do that. And not dissimilar to Nick, you know, you had a situation that just presented itself, Simon the same. You know, we're all a creature of circumstance. It's what you do when that kind of sliding doors moment happens. Liam.
Yeah, circumstance exactly the same. So I run a web design and development agency, and we build systems and websites predominantly for service and e-commerce businesses. And probably like a lot of people in this room, one day in 2013, I thought, I'm all right at this. I can build these systems and these websites. And the next minute, a beast has started, and you know you've got your first employee and one thing or another, and you know this thing grows legs. And here we are, you know, however many years later, 12 years later, you know, turning over 1.2 million. And it was never a dream. It just happened. And you come into contact with some fantastic people on the way, lots of people in this room, because without them, you would never get there on your own, or at least that's what I think anyway.
Absolutely, and you know that connecting today is what it's all about. You've got to have great people around you, and some of the conversations over lunch have been around. I've met some great people. We're already connecting. We're already joining the dots for coffees. Daniel, what about you? Just tell us a little bit about your kind of what was a driving force for you and Berenice to start Access North.
Yep, circumstance like everybody, but ours was more about survival really, and the circumstance was survival. So we were living in New Zealand at the time, and Berenice says, oh, by the way, I'm in a team with my wife here, my beautiful wife Berenice. So we are co-owners of Access North. So yeah, I'm trying to do my best to speak for us both actually. So Berenice's mum got cancer, and we came back to England in 2010 in the heart of the construction recession. And the companies that I worked for, who I was really happy to work for again, didn't want any part of me because I was working for a German competitor. So with my skill set, I really had nowhere to turn to. So we started up Access North, and yeah, just that circumstance of basic human need to survive really, and have an income. Yeah.
I think that's a key message, isn't it? You know, people have got mortgages to pay, they've got mouths to feed, and sometimes that drives us, doesn't it? It keeps us motivated. So, you know, I want to just move the conversation on. That's the starting point, but you know, you've all at some point come stuck. You've hit a bit of a brick wall, or you want to accelerate growth, and you've sought help. So, if you can just share with us, if you wouldn't mind, kind of what was the point at which you become stuck, and how did that make you feel, Liam? At what point did you become stuck and think, I don't like where I am? Yeah.
So this is a vivid memory for me. I think we were probably like 3 or 4 kind of team members. Can't remember what turnover. You know, probably, you know, not huge. and we were I was fighting fires every day. You know, just my inbox was absolutely flooded every day. This dream had turned into a nightmare. And I'll never forget the day I drove to, I think, the Village Hotel in Leeds, met Gary. And I showed him my inbox. I can't use the words that he said when I looked at my inbox, but we had a problem to sort. We were stuck. Where do you go from here? Do you close it down? But you've got a good thing. How do you break through this barrier? But you don't know what you don't know, right? I'd never worked for anyone before. For a start, I set up myself, and that was it. And you just don't know where to turn. One of the distinct things I remember was the first thing you're severely undercharging. Well, that's some kind of insight that I'd never have gotten from elsewhere. So unlocking these kind of things got me unstuck, if you like, from there, and unlocked the rest of the journey.
Who thinks they are or have been undercharging for the services at some point? Most of us, right? We've all been there. Simon, what about you? When did you become stuck, and how did that play out in terms of how you felt?
I didn't know I was stuck, if I was really honest. So I haven't been paid by Gary to promote him, but by chance I was flicking through Facebook, and he'd done a network meeting with a friend, and he was talking about business mentoring. I thought, I've been doing this for a couple of years, maybe that might help. So I took you up on the offer, and we sat together for 2 days, me and you, with lots of charts and stuff, designing what we're doing. And I come to the conclusion at the end is like, I've got a bloody good course, but a shockingly crap business. I didn't have actually business. And that was like, and we did this chart on the wall, which was like, right, in your business, who's like admin, who's team, who's finance, who's accounts, who's strategic, who's operational? I went, well, it's just me. I was everything, literally DIY, single-handedly. And then you encouraged me to take a risk to employ people. I was tight and risk averse because I had no overhead really. So that was a point I realised I was stuck, and then recognised. And probably a couple of months later, I came to this event, and I felt like an imposter in medicine. Totally comfortable. It's my world. I can hold my own, and I thought, actually, I don't understand business. And actually, what I've been able to do is just tap into lots of different wisdom and get expertise. So, am I stuck in the minute? No. Do I stutter a lot? Yes. Thank you.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes getting help isn't about you've hit a hurdle. Sometimes it's what potential can you unlock. But you've hit the nail on the head. It's having a great team of people around you, isn't it? And we said earlier, we're all working with and connecting with people around us. I heard you laugh then about stuttering, taking your first employee on. I know you're not on the panel, but how long is it since you employed your first person? How long did it take you to make the decision, and how many people have you got now? In 20 seconds.
18 months to hire the first one, which was October last year, and we're just about to hire our 10th.
But how many conversations did we have about put your big boy pants on and employ? Quite a few, right? But you've made that leap of faith, it's paid dividends, and you're on your 10th employee. Amazing, well done. Juliet, what about you? At what point did you, because you guys work with Claire, don't you, on a regular basis? At what point did you guys realise you needed help, and how's that kind of played out?
Well, Claire's worked with us from the very start. So the first few years were good. We were growing, we'd recruited, and then we just seemed to hit this plateau where we seemed to be living the same month over and over again. So we were billing 35, 40 grand a month. It never seemed to shift. At that same time, one of our junior solicitors left, and trying to recruit was a nightmare. We were just being told by recruiters that, newly qualified, so they just want to go to the big national law firms. They're not interested in smaller law firms. And then on top of that, I was suffering with imposter syndrome. So I was literally walking into a room and apologising for running a law firm but not being a lawyer. So knew something had to change.
Fabulous. And Daniel, what about you? How did when did you become stuck, and how did that play out?
I remember one moment where we were before kids, and we'd got a really good contract, and then all of a sudden there was no sales coming in, and so Berenice was really great at marketing and getting our website underway, and I was a project manager and I was a technician in the company. And I'd never ever done any sales, and we had this moment where she she goes, we've got no money coming in, we've got no more clients. And then I just went, whoa, what the hell? So then there was a moment where we entered into the growth mentality, right? So you have to learn as you go. And we were pretty cruisy, just took one day at a time, no forecasting, nothing until we met Gary, right? But this moment here was a moment where I really had to start to grow, to learn. Bought my first sales book, learned how to process the sales, from leads to prospects to the actual meetings, stuff like that. Just the real basics that I had no idea about. And then, I think there's so many moments like that where we've had freak out moments together where we don't have this and we don't have that, or we've got this issue with somebody, or we've got this process that we don't have, or the system that needs to be created. And I think it's just one after the other. But I think, listening to Eddie today, it's really having the joy. It's someone, you're talking about joy, having the joy in the failure and like going, holy cow, I need to learn how to do that now, and then learn how to do it, and growing and building. And that's from that one moment that you've asked that question, that is the journey that's come about.
And I think there's a key message here, isn't there? That often when you hit a dry spot in terms of whether it be cash or revenue or whatever it might be, it prompts you into immediate action, doesn't it? The trick as a business owner is to take that immediate action before you get to that pinch point, because if you don't, sometimes it can bite you on the proverbial. So it's trying to forecast, what's coming in, when's it coming in, whether it be sales or revenue or cash or whatever it might be, and then taking action. And this is why we're in planning mode today. Don't wait until you've got no sales coming in before you start your marketing. Start your marketing before you need the sales coming in. So it's getting ahead of the curve. And that's a trick for us all. And these guys are no different to everybody in the room. We've all had those situations. It's how you deal with them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Simon, I'm just going to come over to you for a moment, because we've picked on you a couple of times today in terms of having that great support team, whether it be Liam on the digital side or Danny on the forecasting side or whatever. Just tell us a little bit about what you look for in somebody in your support team, and what have you learnt along the way in terms of selecting the right people versus not so.
Yeah. So I've worked for a lot of people. We were chatting about this morning, is you need to hire people smarter than you. Yeah, so when I took on another doctors to do the training, they were getting better feedback, and my ego was like, oh man, I haven't stopped the show yet. And I was like, actually, no, they're earning me money and actually doing a really good job. So that's from the trainers. But I built everything myself, and not a bad job. But it wasn't good use of my time. Worked with you for a long time. You and I met with Claire. Claire said, you need a better system, introduced me to HubSpot. Ash helped me integrate HubSpot. Need to do a website. Liam helped me. My accountant, you've been telling me for years my accountant's terrible. I finally sacked them this year.
I use a different word, but...
yeah. And I got Danny on it, and because the question we talk about is we see they're investments, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're investments, not costs. They're investments to earn more money. And when you get stuck to a certain level, if you don't have all the people around you to do the right thing in the right way, you're not going to progress. So I've just had another stuck point where I've got a new colleague on, and I've got all this team in, and I've got other people keeping on an eye on things I used to feel I had to watch all the time, which has just created so much more headspace. So, and I use a lot of consultants. I don't have to employ people full time, and I can manage that. So, but that's taken me from the 400-500 into the million, and I hope it's going to take us to 3 million in the next 24 months.
And this is a key for us all, is that if you don't trust a member of your team enough for you to let go, because we're all control freaks as business owners, if you don't trust your team enough to let go, then they're the wrong team. And we've touched on it a couple of times. You've had a couple of people in the team where you've just not been able to let go, and that's why you're working weekends and such. And the question I asked you yesterday when we were one-to-one was, how busy were you when you were on holiday for a month? And he said, my team had it, and I was almost redundant, kind of thing. And
they came back with ideas. They said, we think we need this person. I was like, oh, great, that was the job I was going to ask you to do. And the other thing which you talk a lot about, which is values. So I spent a day with Claire working out what our core values were of the organisation. Yeah. And I have them. I've got 4 core values: authenticity, credibility, expert and inspiring. And we will not take any work on that we can't be all for. And when I'm struggling with somebody, when my gut's saying this person's not right, there is nearly always one of them. And we talk about values misaligned, so that feeling I've got to let go of somebody who I feel, loyalty is a core value of mine, so if somebody's been good to me, I don't want to let them down. But then if there's a values, that sort of dissonance between values aligned and loyalty, and like we say, you've got to make the right decision for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, you mentioned earlier in the kind of kick-off around having your SLT not stepping up and it's causing you some angst, and you've got now, I think you just said, in excess of 500 people. How the hell do you navigate an SLT not stepping up, employing over 500 people across the UK, and you not working 24/7?
Xanax? No, just
available by prescription.
No, I think from that perspective, it's exactly what you and Sam have just been discussing about letting that leadership lead, giving them control to do their job. And I'll speak you through the exact example I was giving Simon before. I've got one particular member of my SLT team who, believe it or not, we've actually been friends since we're 6 or 7 year old. You know, so there's a friendship there. He has ran through walls for me, he's ran around the country, he's done everything that I could ever ask as him, as a friend, as an employee. He's great. But where the business is at this present moment in time, he, in my opinion, has just reached his capacity level in terms of skill set. From my perspective, no matter how much I work with an individual or a mentor or a coach for him, or training or guidance, that strategical outlook of him doing his role over a bigger team, over a bigger period, doesn't seem to be working for him. He's one of the best operators I've ever seen. You know, but like I said, it's using people with particular skill sets and having those difficult conversations. And for me, in 6 years of running a business, you know, I put on 3 stone during that time, lost it again now. But, you know, went through not seeing the kids all the time as I did because I was working 24/7. You know, that was the most difficult conversation I've ever had. And from my perspective, when I had that conversation, it ate at me for days and days, and not probably months. You know, but once I had that conversation, it set my mind at ease. Yes, it upset him in the interim, but from that perspective, he knows his place now and his roles and responsibilities. And ultimately then, the wider business has improved in terms of communication from our outset, and his team, or what was his team, are now improving and taking on more responsibility, and they're shining now, which is giving me layers within my business.
And as I said earlier, you know, you're not doing that person any favours by keeping them there. You know, short-term challenges for sure, and it's difficult ripping the plaster off, but it's in the best interest of everybody. Julie, I'm going to ask you from 2 angles. Firstly, kind of the importance of team around you and what some of the decisions you've gone to make sure you're getting the right people around you, but also as an employment lawyer, how are you navigating it on the other side when people are trying to get rid of people that are great values, have been there for years, but they're coming to you going, help, I need to get this person out of my business quickly. So tell us from both sides how that's playing out.
Okay, well, I'm actually not an employment lawyer.
Right.
But I can tell you what my husband always says, and that's just be reasonable. You can't go far wrong if you're reasonable. In terms of the team around us, I think, you know, everyone's talked about values, and I think that is such a key thing. And I think the reason we were having an issue is because when we first started, we just kind of, and this before Claire was involved with this, we just came up with like these 2 R's as our brand. We were like, oh, that looks a bit lawyery, we'll go with that. And that was absolutely the wrong thing to do, because trying to look like a law firm is so wrong for us. So we knew that, you know, Claire knew our business so well. So we sat down and we went back to basics and created a brand that actually really does reflect us and reflect our business, and gave us that confidence again to go out and shout about it. It's like Robinson Ralph 2.0. We've started again. So I think, yeah, having people around you. I mean, in terms of our team, we always say our values are integrity, enthusiasm, and a sense of humour. So integrity and enthusiasm and sense of humour can't be taught. You know, someone has to have that before they come in. Everything else we can teach them. And it's done us proud most of the time. We have misfired quite massively when we've tried to employ someone ourselves and just get a bum on a seat, and that did not go well at all. So we will never do that again, but we've learnt from it. So
If you want a bum on a seat, you'll get a bum on a seat, right?
absolutely.
And you know, this is coming out loud and clear, isn't it? You've got to have people that have value aligned, and we'll all have situations where we've had somebody in our team that's not working. And I can't remember who said it earlier, Simon maybe, you know, it's one of those core values that's not working. It's rarely technical capability, it's behavioural misalignment. And for those that can remember Simon Hartley talking about hiring a world-class team and hiring on character going back 3-4 years, that's all he talked about, is hire on character. You can teach them the technical aspects, absolutely. Daniel, you've had a challenge recently with a long-standing member of the team. Just tell us a little bit about the importance of value alignment and acting quickly when you've got a problem that you know about.
Yeah, it's a good question. Tough one. We, first of all, didn't act quickly, and so we let it drag out for quite a while. And I think the positive of that is that you got to see a little bit of destruction right in front of your eyes and learn from it as it's happening, and then try to scramble to fix it, I guess. And while I'm at it, where's Tracy? Thank you very much for your help. There's your plug. This has been the toughest thing, what you've just said about loyalty. It's really hard to articulate. However, if I was to put it in two terms, one would be, now because of that, we've learned to look for the people with the growth mentality, you know, and the integrity, which comes with that kind of alignment. And then the two negative parts is, now if I get a hint of self-pity or the victimhood, I really think, oh, whoa, okay, holy moly. That could get in the way of the growth mentality and the integrity that we want. So although we delayed it, it turned out not so good, but then now it's great. We learned that very valuable lesson, I think.
And I think there's one thing that you probably just need to understand, is that by you being loyal to somebody that's not serving you, they're not actually being loyal to you. When they're being toxic in the organisation, when they're gossiping behind your back, when they're, you know, doing the little possible. We had a breakfast meeting round table earlier this week, and one of the gentlemen had to get rid of his brother-in-law. Very, very good person, great person, but the business just wasn't in a place that could sustain his kind of skill set and his kind of value alignment, and so he had to have a really difficult conversation. Now you can imagine how that went down at home, but he needed to do what was right for his business. This person wasn't loyal to him, even though he'd been loyal to them. So you've got to just look at loyalty as a two-way street.
Yeah.
Liam, what about you? The importance of having the right people around you?
Yeah, I mean, it plays out in lots of different ways, doesn't it? You know, we've had all the same challenges in terms of either people that we need to let go from the team that aren't value aligned. They're the easy ones generally to get rid of, but then you have the ones that are really tough. I think having the people outside of the four walls, so to speak, to talk to, you know, whether it be Gary or other people in the room that you connect with and, you know, do business with all the time, they're just great contacts to have, because you often find that people will say they understand, but they don't. So to talk to people who have been in a similar position to help you have the right people on your team is really important. And the other thing I'd say is, we've worked with a lot of people in this room to help the people in our team be the right people on the team. So to bring the kind of, you know, we've got great people, but they don't have the skills. And, you know, I can't teach someone finance, or I can't teach someone sales, for example, because I've come from a technical background. So bringing the people in to upskill the team and help the team, because you've got a great team who have these values, has been really useful too.
Yeah.
And it's about unlocking that potential, isn't it? You know, if you've got a salesperson, bring somebody in to train them to be the best salesperson or the best finance person or whatever it might be. It's pointless having unskilled people. Having value alignment's one thing, but having people on your team that are not the best skilled people in their role is ultimately going to hold you back. Simon, just, you know, we talked there a little bit about value alignment and getting the right help. What did that unlock for you once you got rid of the naysayers and the toxic people, and once you got the right help around you? What's that unlocked for you in terms of potential?
Oh, huge. Ultimately, it's took away friction, which I think, friction holds you back, just emotionally and physically. It's taken that away, and it's given me headspace to be strategic. I need to be out customer facing, conferences, podcasts, and I don't need to be buried in operations, checking things, frustrated. So bandwidth, energy, my opportunity is huge. We're probably got 1% of the market if we're lucky at the minute. So I never thought I would have took that step to try and go big, but actually it feels exciting.
But I think you said earlier, you had a business that was turning over relatively little because it was a side hustle alongside your kind of job in the NHS. But now you've gone full time and you've got a team of 80 odd kind of faculty around you. You're talking easily a 3, 4, 5 million turnover business. Yeah,
we've already got 1.1 million banked this year. We've doubled our sales from last year, and we're not even halfway through it. So our brand, it's allowed us our brand awareness. People are looking at us. We went to New Zealand, Australia, were aware of us. They want to collaborate. So hopefully gets Mrs. Fraser more trips around the world. What Gary didn't tell you is he made me sack my wife.
Forgot about that.
My wife was a reluctant helper at the beginning, and we would have had a divorce. So Gary probably saved my marriage.
You're welcome.
Talk to you about it later, babe.
I'm not even looking in your direction.
It's the inverse, trust me. Yeah.
Liam, what about you? Once you got the help around you, whether it be kind of the sales skills, the finance skills, what potential has that unlocked for you?
It's cheesy, but that photo in the middle kind of says it all. So that's this summer, similar to Simon, 3 weeks away in America. I didn't take my MacBook with me, and that's just massive. And I think someone on that table said it this morning. They've been to Australia for a month. I was having conversations outside with people this morning, and we're all in this to make money out. This is what we want to do, and we've got a dream, we've got a goal, we want to keep growing. But ultimately, it unlocks the bigger picture, doesn't it, in your life? It unlocks the things that actually you've got started to get up in the morning, you've hated it. You're getting up in the morning now, and these are the reasons that you're doing it for. So it's unlocked a lot more than just turning over more than £1 million. That's kind of a byproduct of everything else that it's unlocked.
And as I touched on with the rebrand earlier, what this is saying is you can build a significant business and do more of what you love. And Nick said there about putting a little bit of timber on in the early days because he was working 24/7. We all have to do that for times. We just do, and you let those things that are important to you slide. But it's then building a team and systems around you that ultimately allow you to get back to the gym or get back to travelling or do what it is you want to do. So you can have both with the right systems, the right people, the right plan. And if you take nothing away from today other than get those 3 things right, then you absolutely can, travel. What about yourself? What did getting the right help unlock for you in terms of that potential?
So I think twofold for us. Obviously, the rebrand was exactly what we needed at the right time. In terms of my imposter syndrome, I went on a course with my business coach who sat right there, so no pressure. And that really turned things around for me. I think it was quite difficult as a leader to admit that I had imposter syndrome. But once I did, that's when things really started to change. And I've managed to reframe the not being a lawyer from a negative thing into actually that's my superpower, because everyone else in that business has only ever worked in a law firm. I've worked in pharmaceuticals, I've done marketing, I've done sales, training, all this different stuff that has actually ended up being the best training ground I could have hoped for the job that I do now. So, I think it's finding the right people, not being frightened to ask for help. I don't know why, but when we started, I didn't realise that all the successful people around me had business coaches and mentors. I thought they just did it on their own. So You know, any advice that I could give it is get a business coach, because that outside insight and that experience that you can tap into is just invaluable.
Ring Claire, right? That's what you're saying.
Always.
But you know what?
Both Claires.
But what you're saying is absolutely right. Is, you know, having the right people around you, and that's the question we're asking. You know, Claire's amazing. Having the right people around you really unlocks that potential. And if that's you changing a switch from imposter syndrome, I don't belong here, to actually that's my superpower, that just, you know, from a confidence and a focus and a clarity and a getting out of bed, just unlocks everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Simon.
Can I just add to that? It's an accountability partner. Because I think when you're running a business, you're just running hard and working hard. And we catch up every 8 weeks. And I know I know I've got things to do, and it gives me that space. So I think anybody, you know, it drives me bonkers that leaders in the NHS don't have coaching or mentoring. We escalate these fantastic skilled clinicians to running one of the biggest things. So anybody who's got a business or wants to do anything has to have a critical friend who you can be yourself, that you can talk privately, but actually is with you on the journey. But we'll ask you the tricky questions. And the tricky question I get is, if that's the business you want to be in 2 years, what's the team you need? All right, and I'll go away and I'll do my homework and I'll come back with a team plan.
Nick, we've had tons of conversations, haven't we, about kind of breaking it, rebuilding it, breaking it, rebuilding it. One of the things that really stood out from me when one of our early interactions, you had a very successful business, you know, just into year 2, and I felt that you had this amazing kind of opportunity to just really put your foot hard on the gas and go for it, and you decided just to kind of hit the brakes and reset. Just tell us a little bit about why you did that.
I think in any business and growth strategy, it's all about the foundations underneath you. And regardless if you're going from 0 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, it's still the same lessons, it's still the same foundation, just on a bigger scale, knowing your numbers. And when I say knowing your numbers, filling out this worksheet today, I'm talking granular. You know, I'm talking every site, every venue, every spend, every P&L that you do in terms of strategising across a 12, 24, 36-month business plan, whatever you're doing, to ensure that that happens. And equally from a finance point of view, and equally from operations point of view, in terms of your recruitment, your operational model, your layers of your first member of staff. If that first member of staff fails or leaves, where's your replacement coming from? Are you going to get dragged back into that to fill that void? No, because I've got someone else coming through, you know, who's then aspiring to be the person above them. And from my perspective, to answer Gary's question directly, when I reached a certain point where the business was me, you know, we used to have operating SOP manuals, and it used to say, "See Nick." But like I said,
That's what mine says.
But from that perspective, it's getting everyone aligned to process. You know, I often feel, and again, I said it to one of the panel members earlier, you know, I often feel like the guy outside Grand Central Station in New York with the cardboard cutout above my head saying "follow process." You know, and like I said, from that perspective, that's me in the office down to a T, that this is the way we do things, okay, this is the way that works, okay, stay within those alignments and your job will be great, and equally the company will continue to expand and everyone's happy.
Fab. Right, I'm going to ask you all a question, and I just want the first answer that comes to mind, and then I'm going to open it up for questions for a few minutes. Daniel, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in business?
Avoid envy, avoid jealousy, and just go your own way. Yeah. Avoid envy. Full stop. Yeah.
Good answer. Liam.
Back yourself. If you've gotten to where you are, there's a good chance you know kind of what you need to do.
Yeah, that'll resonate. Juliet.
Don't be afraid to be Marmite.
And do you know what? Like one of the you talked earlier, didn't you, about the videos? One of the best videos. There's 2 videos that really stand out for me. One of them was Simon looking really solemn and really serious, looking into the camera, talking about dress code at work. And Spider-Man crept in and went into his office, and it was just like the funniest. And you don't expect that to come from a lawyer. You expect a lawyer to be serious and grey suited, and that's the thing. We talked earlier about standing out from the crowd. If you're going to have that level of sense of humour, that's going to attract a particular type of client, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what anybody in marketing will say is that marketing isn't trying to appeal to everybody. It's trying to attract those you want to work with and detract those that you don't. And so having content that stands out is going to do that. Nick, what's the one piece of business advice that you've ever received that you would share?
hold people to account. From that perspective, make sure people who's working for you, who you're working with, are doing exactly what you want them to do. Don't put tough conversations off, challenge them head on, and you'll move forward much quicker.
Brilliant.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Simon, last but not least.
Can I have two?
Yeah.
A serious one. First one, sack the wife.
Daniel, close your ears.
Too late, it's in me.
My wife had no interest in the business whatsoever, and she was doing it out of pure love and support for me. So it catalysed me to get a team and make sure I had a healthy marriage. But the serious answer is what I'm doing, who I'm working with around me, values aligned. And that's my compass. And I always go back to those 4 values every time, and it helps me make a decision.
Fabulous, thank you. Can you just give him a quick round of applause before we run for questions, please? We've probably got 5 minutes for questions. Ash.
Probably a question for, well, anyone really. How far do you, when you're interviewing, hiring new people, how far do you back them fitting values-wise versus maybe them not quite having this full skill set you want, but kind of maybe the potential? Not sure who wants.
So I would say for us completely that those values are everything. And obviously, I mean, we can't hire an unqualified solicitor, but we would always look for that first. And any inkling that that's not there, those values aren't there, then we've learnt the hard way, then it's a no.
Fabulous. Anybody else? Stephen.
Yeah, 2 things I'd like to sort of question. Nick, you say about putting down what you want from your employees, but then you were talking about hiring people who are better than you, sort of thing. It seems to contradict to some extent, because you're obviously the boss, but is it do as I say?
If it was do as I say, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today. You know, but to answer your question, and again, Simon touched on it with his one-to-ones with Gary, and equally, my perception of management, how I manage my SLT has certainly changed since working with Gary. You know, and if one of them could sit in my one-to-ones with Gary, they would probably resonate how my one-to-ones with that person are, you know, in terms of very direct, you know, questions in terms of giving them a brief in terms of expectation, but certainly not giving them instruction. You know, because for me, for that person or that team, you know, I have to let that team go and do what they want to do, to go and guide discovery and find the best way forward, because otherwise, anything, lo and behold, happens to me, you know, or I'm not around, and that business stops, you know. So equally, from that perspective, training, development of that person, ownership of the department and task. You know, if they feel they've got ownership and they're running it their way and not my way, then they're going to work harder for you. So it's not so much my way, but equally, I give them the task and they go and do it their way.
Okay. And you said, Gary, about if you don't trust the team, then you need to make changes. But is there an element there of looking at yourself? Or have you just got to back yourself all the time?
Look, I think Liam said back yourself. Look, absolutely. You know, a bad employee, if I phrase it, a bad employee, sometimes is a byproduct of your poor leadership. So what you've got to do before you start poking somebody between the eyeballs is say, have I given clear instructions? Have I set expectations in terms of what success looks like, when, how it needs to be delivered? And if you don't get that bit right, then of course they're not going to deliver. So having a difficult conversation with somebody when you've not set the expectations in terms of I want it in this format, on this time, in this way, then you've got to self-reflect. But on the presumption you've got that communication right and they're technically capable, as Juliet says, then it comes down to, do they want to, can they, are they willing to? So yeah, always self-reflect first before you start pointing the finger. Any other questions? Yes?
What are the top sort of points you'd make around process for scaling the business? So just some ideas on top processes you'd recommend.
Can I throw that over to Simon, who's probably got more processes in place than I've seen in most businesses in 15 years?
Danny's been inside it, haven't you, Danny? Systems. Automate. Just build it really, everything. I talk about marginal gains, making an improvement, or the Kaizen philosophy, making an improvement every single week. The barrier to then scaling is what Nick said, which is you've got to make the expectations really clear. So you've got to give them autonomy and space to innovate, but you've got to be clear what the outcome is in the process. So I'm going to get the placard from Nick and say, just follow the bloody system.
Processes run the business, people run the processes. End of. Any more questions? We've probably got one more question. Yes.
For the people that have taken the time out of the business, what do your teams think about the fact that you're not there?
Great question.
Because there's two mindsets in my business. There's one particular person in my business that thinks I should always be there, that I should always have my feet on the ground, and I just take too many holidays. And the other people in the business think, well, it's great that you can go and do that, because this, but what's your experience of it? Because you've obviously taken some decent breaks there.
They were very, very happy that I left them alone and didn't mind. But what it did is I just brought somebody in as my deputy, who's working with our business manager, and actually the fact that I wasn't around and give them space to build a relationship way of working was good. It was a win-win at the end.
Flip that round. Yeah. As a business owner, not working in the business 24/7 for what you're used to, that's a difficult thing to get over as well. You know, that I went from literally 24/7, you know, to know my work-life balance probably could get a little bit better still, but equally from there it's in a good place. You know, so when I'm not in the office 5 days a week, I'm not the first one through the door, I'm not the last one out of it every day. You know, as a business owner, sometimes that's tough to take and tough to handle. You know, but equally we all put the work in, we all put the effort in, we all employ people and take the risk, enabling you to go and live your life, and that's super, super important.
And I think that's a great closing message. Build a business that allows you the opportunity to take time away, but then be comfortable with it when you do. Ladies and gentlemen, will you give a round of applause, please, to our wonderful panel guests? Liam, thank you. Liam from Identify, Nick from Edu, Simon from Doctors Training, Daniel from Access North, and Juliet from Robinson Ralph.
Thank you.